Okay, so let's talk about the linebackers today to kick off the conversation. We're going to, first of all, let's look at what the linebacker unit was in 2024 on the the initial 53-man roster heading into the season. It was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, JOK, Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush, Tony Fields, Mohamed Diabate, and Buki Watson. So those were the linebackers on the initial 53-man roster a year ago. To kick off the conversation heading into training camp 2025, let's start with Jordan Hicks, 6'1", 235 pounds. He is 32 years old. This will be his 11th NFL season. This is the second year of his 2-year deal with the Browns. He's a $4.1 million cap hit. This year they signed him in the offseason last year in 2024 to come in here and kind of fill the role left by Anthony Walker, who had been here for a few years, just could not stay healthy, could not stay on the field. And so they brought in Jordan Hicks, who also did not stay healthy last year. This just, injuries is a theme with the Browns. Every year, it doesn't matter who the players are. We can bring in a guy who hasn't missed a game in the last 5 years, and he's probably going to miss at least 4, if not maybe half the season for the Browns in his first year here. Just for whatever reason, whether it's the athletic training department, the conditioning guys, the strength and conditioning, all that stuff, these guys get hurt more often, it seems, for the Browns. Like if we always go through our injury reports every week during the season, and the Browns injury report is always longer, sometimes twice as long as our opponent's is. It's freaking incredible. But anyway, back to Jordan Hicks. He played 12 games in 2024, so he missed 5. It was his first season, of course, because he missed 5 games. First season under 100 tackles after logging 5 straight seasons with 100+. He missed games with elbow injuries, tricep injuries, missed the finale against the Ravens with a concussion. So just a typical year for a guy on the Cleveland Browns. But even with missing 5 games, he still managed to log 78 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. So if we can get a relatively healthy season from Jordan Hicks, and again, like I said, I know health in anyone on the Browns, it doesn't seem to correlate very well, but Jordan Hicks is a very solid linebacker, and he's a great player to lead this unit in 2025. The next guy on the list is Devin Bush, 5'11", 235, 26 years old. This will be his 7th NFL season. The Browns signed him back this year in 25 on a 1-year deal, 1.17 vet minimum contract. So he's, like I said, on the vet minimum. I thought Devin Bush played pretty solid for the Browns last season, despite, utter vomit-inducing state of the team that was the Browns in 2024. Bush came in here after, he was a first-round pick for the Steelers, and in his rookie season was phenomenal, and then had some injury situation going on and just never really bounced back from that until last year came back and had, like I said, a pretty solid season. Played 16 games, 76 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and he defended 3 passes. But given all that, given what he did last year and everything, Browns brought him back in the offseason. I don't think that makes him a lock to make the team by any stretch, just because this linebacker position, I'm going to continue to go through the names here. I think the linebacker position is actually pretty deep heading into training camp. So, Devin Bush, again, the next veteran up, as a guy who was here last year as well, but again, not a lock in my opinion to make the team. I think the training camp battle at the linebacker position specifically is going to be very interesting this year, because Jordan Hicks, obviously a great veteran leader to be at the top of that unit, Devin Bush, and then these next couple names here, we've got some very good linebackers, and I'm going to roll right in now to Mohamed Diabate. 6'4", 225 pounds, 24 years old. This is his 3rd NFL season after going undrafted back in 2023. Browns signed him as a UDFA, and he has been nothing short of excellent as an undrafted player, making this roster now 2 years in a row heading into his 3rd. Diabate played 13 games last season, made 70 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and defended 3 passes. I do expect Diabate to make the 53-man roster for the 3rd straight season in 2025, just because he's a dog. The dude is an absolute dog on the field. And I'm based on what I believe was Cameron Justice was reporting over OTAs and minicamp here in the spring. Diabate, once again, making plays everywhere on the field. So, and these UDFA guys, I mean, I'm not saying anything, this is all promoting these guys. They've got a bigger chip on their shoulder a lot of times than the drafted players. Because they've had to work for it. They went undrafted. They had to, come in as a UDFA and then fight for a spot. And there's 33% of the NFL on average every year is made up of undrafted players. I mean, that's 1 out of every 3 players didn't get drafted. These guys come in hungry and they fight. And we've seen exactly that from Mohamoud Diabate. And we've also seen it now last year from this next guy, Winston Reed. So again, sticking with the undrafted veteran guys for the Browns, Reed was a UDFA out of Weber State last season, 6 foot, 225 pounds. He is 25 years old, so he was a little older coming out of college, now heading into his second NFL season. Played in 16 games last season, had 23 tackles, 1 TFL, 2 pass breakups, and 1 fumble recovery. After JOK went down last season and Jordan Hicks dealt with his injuries, the Browns got some very solid performances from the last few guys that I mentioned. Devin Bush, Mohamoud Diabate, and Winston Reed as a rookie was very impressive for the Browns, I felt, last year. So the Browns did bring in another good veteran option this offseason. They signed Jerome Baker, 6'2", 232 pounds. He is just 28 years old, and yet this is going to be his 8th NFL season out of Ohio State. So, of course, I got a soft spot in my heart for these Buckeyes, but Jerome Baker's been a guy who's been very good in the NFL over his career. Last year, he played in 5 games with the Seattle Seahawks and then got traded, played 5 games with the Tennessee Titans. In total, Jerome Baker had 61 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. The Browns signed him this year to a 1-year, $1.25 million contract, so not quite the vet minimum, higher than what they gave Devin Bush. This is a guy that I wanted the Browns to sign last offseason. I think me and Kenny Mack actually did an episode highlighting players we wanted the Browns to sign in free agency, and Jerome Baker was one of the guys that I highlighted last offseason. Ultimately, he ended up signing with Seattle last year for $7 million over 1 year, and like I said, played 5 games with the Seahawks before getting traded to Tennessee. So $1.25 million for Jerome Baker this year could end up being a huge steal for the Browns. It's a guy who's had 3 seasons now over 100 tackles, and then he had a 4th season in there with 92. So almost 4 seasons at 100 tackles. His season high in sacks is 7. He has 24 and a half sacks over his career. He's not a huge TFL guy, but he does break up passes at a high rate, and he forces fumbles. I loved this signing when it happened, not just because he's a Buckeye, but because he's been a great linebacker in the NFL over his career. I think Baker has a chance to contribute more to the defense in 2025 than maybe a lot of people are thinking. There have been some bigger splashes, obviously the drafting of Carson Schweschinger, who I'll get to here in a little bit. The bringing back of Devin Bush, who then, he did have his arrest or whatever that situation was over in Pittsburgh this offseason. I'll mention that, but I'm not going to dive into it anymore. We've already covered it on the show. And obviously the UDFA guys get a lot of buzz in camp and stuff. But Jerome Baker is a veteran who I think is going to make his presence felt in training camp. And I'm excited to see him play for the Browns this season. Next guy up, we've got Buki Watson, Nathaniel Buki Watson. He was last year's 6th round pick out of Mississippi State. 6 foot, 233 pounds, 24 years old. Did not quite have the impact in 2024 that we were hoping for after he led the SEC in tackles. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. Just had more hope and expectation for him as a rookie last year, but he did play in 14 games, just 14 total tackles. 10 of them were solo. He did break up a pass. Majority of his snaps were on special teams, so he didn't play a whole lot of defense. The defensive snaps when we dealt with injuries ended up going to UDFA Winston Reed over the 6th round pick, Buki Watson. Watson played 243 snaps on special teams, just 55 snaps on defense. So as much as we like Buki Watson, I like Buki Watson. He even came on the podcast last summer. I had a conversation with him. Great dude. I think he's probably more likely a candidate to be on the practice squad unless the Browns covet him on their special teams units, which they very well may. He excelled on special teams last year. That could be a spot where he makes the 53-man specifically to contribute on all their ST units. We will see how things go this summer. He'll be a guy to watch in preseason for sure. So that's Buki Watson, second-year man out of Mississippi State. And that will roll us into the final name on the list, probably the name you guys are most excited to hear about. And that's Carson Schwessinger, the 6'2", 242 rookie out of UCLA, 22 years old. The Browns used the very first pick, if you remember, on day 2 of the NFL draft to go get, unfortunately, their JOK replacement. The rookie out of UCLA had the number 1 production score among all linebackers in this draft class. His college career, just a refresher for everybody. 2021, he was a redshirt walk-on at UCLA. 2022, he played in all 13 games as a reserve and on special teams. He had 15 tackles and half a tackle for loss. He received a scholarship before that season. 2023 came back, played in all 13 games again as a reserve and on special teams, just 12 tackles and 2 TFLs with 1 sack. So very minimal production after walking on his freshman year. Then last year in 2024, exploded. First team Associated Press All-American, first team All Big Ten Conference, finalist for the Butkus Award, which is the nation's top linebacker, led the FBS with 90 solo tackles, ranked 3rd in the nation with 136 total tackles. He was a team captain at UCLA, played in all 12 games, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and like I said, 136 tackles, 90 of them solo tackles. Wow. So he only has the 1 season as a starter in college, but like I said, it was an incredible season. I don't expect him to come out and be necessarily the guy for the Browns early in the season, but man, I do expect to see him make some big strides and really start to make plays for the team over the second half of the season as he continues to adapt to the NFL game and the NFL game speed and as things start to slow down for him. But some of the reports, I think it was Terry Pluto, had some news and notes and updates and things from OTAs and minicamp that he came away with. And one of the things was that Carson Schwessinger could be the guy, even though I just said I don't expect him to be the guy. Right away, he's saying maybe even early in the season, this guy can start. The Browns think he can play. He's picking up the defensive schemes very quickly. The dude has a high motor and a high recognition of play. I'm very excited for Carson Schwessinger on the defensive side of the ball. Other names to mention here at the linebacker position, we've got Easton Mascarenas Arnold. No clue, guys. I admit I do not know who that guy is. And of course, JOK, who has been placed on the reserve pup list and will miss all of 2025 with the neck injury that he sustained against the Ravens in that head-on collision with Derrick Henry in Week 8 last season. So unfortunately, yes, JOK should be highlighting our linebacker conversation here for the Browns, but unfortunately, he just gets an honorable mention at the end because he's not going to play this year. Doesn't feel like he's probably ever going to play football again. That if I had to make a bet right now, yes or no, does JOK ever play football again in the NFL? I would bet no. And that's not me. I don't say that with any bit of joy. I just think that's the honest reality of the situation. If he does come back, holy crap. Him with Carson Schwessinger could be the best linebacking unit in the NFL. So praying for JOK's safety, first and foremost, just as a human being, just for life, because I think he's 26. I mean, the dude is young. He's got the rest of his life to live. Want him to be healthy, want him to stay safe. Obviously, selfishly, as a Browns fan, I want to see him back on the field, but just I wouldn't bet on it.